Okay, so we've all heard about this, right? Like academic dishonesty, cheating in school.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's something we all probably know a little bit about from, back when we were in school, whether it was like whispers of, test answers going around the hallways or, bigger issues at the university level.
Mhm.
And it's like when you see the actual numbers, it really kind of hits you.
Right.
So there was this study back in 2012 by the Josephson Institutes,
Okay.
and they found that like a surprising 32% of high schoolers admitted to plagiarizing off the internet,
Wow.
which is pretty crazy. And over half of them, 51%, had cheated on an exam at some point. And like get this, almost three-quarters of them, 74%, had copied someone else's homework.
Yeah, it's a pretty prevalent issue, and I
And
thought
it makes you wonder, like,
it's not new.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like even back in 1979, a Carnegie Council study was showing that students felt justified in cheating to get the grades they needed.
Wow. So this
Huh.
is
And so,
not a new problem.
not a new problem at all. It's been persistent, and it looks like, with recent data on undergraduates, even like 50 to 70% of them are engaging in some form of academic dishonesty.
Yeah.
So it's a huge issue that needs to be tackled.
Exactly. And so for this deep dive, we're not just going to focus on like, more statistics and things like that.
Right.
But we really want to kind of understand like the why behind it. Like, why is this happening?
Hmm.
And we have a really fascinating meta-analysis which looked at 79 studies
Wow.
exploring the connection between a student's motivation and whether they engage in academic dishonesty.
Interesting.
And so what's really interesting is that unlike, things like demographics,
Right.
which are kind of fixed motivation, is something that can actually change. It's malleable.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's what makes this so, important to talk about.
Absolutely.
So yeah, our mission for this deep dive is to really like cut through the noise and pinpoint, the most important factors that this research highlighted that seem to be, connected to academic dishonesty.
Absolutely. And this meta-analysis is great because it brings together so many different studies.
Yeah.
So it's really a comprehensive overview of the research that's already out there.
Right.
And it's really going to help us to identify, these different motivational factors. And some might be surprising.
Right.
Some we're going to be looking at how certain types of learning, like when students are really interested in actually learning and mastering content,
Mm-hmm.
that actually seems to protect against academic dishonesty.
That makes sense.
But on the flip side, we'll see that, when students are really focused on just getting good grades,
Right.
that could actually push them towards it.
Yeah.
We're also going to look at intrinsic motivation, that internal drive to learn and how that plays a role,
Okay.
and even what happens when students feel completely unmotivated,
Right.
which is a big problem these days.
Yeah. And so, as always, we want to give you, the listener,
Direct access.
a direct line into, yeah,
All this information without having to, wade through all the research yourself.
exactly. Cut to the chase.
Yeah, those aha moments where, you can really understand what this research is saying.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
let's start at the beginning when we say academic dishonesty in like the context of this research.
Mhm.
What does that actually include?
So that's a great question because we need to define our terms here.
Right.
And this meta-analysis uses a pretty comprehensive definition based on the work of McCabe and colleagues from 2012. And they define it as engaging in one or more of a number of different actions.
Okay.
So this includes things like, using someone else's work without citing it.
Right.
And fabricating sources in your bibliography.
Right.
Straight up copying from websites or books.
Mm-hmm.
Turning in work that someone else did, either in part or in whole.
Yeah, the classic plagiarism.
Exactly, classic plagiarism. But it also goes beyond just written work. It includes things like, getting exam questions or answers ahead of time.
Yeah. Collaborating with others on assignments when it's not allowed, copying from other students during an exam, or even bringing unauthorized materials like, notes into the exam room.
Right. So it's pretty...
So it's a pretty broad definition.
Yeah.
And they point out that these can generally be grouped into two main categories: plagiarism,
Mm-hmm.
which we've talked about, using other people's work, and then cheating,
Right.
which is more about getting unauthorized help during assessments.
Right. Okay.
And it is important to note that, how these are defined and measured can vary a bit across different studies.
Right.
And also on how students perceive these actions.
Yeah.
what they consider to be academic dishonesty.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a complex issue.
We have a clear picture of what we're talking about when we say academic dishonesty.
Right.
Let's dive into, one of the central ideas here, achievement goals.
Okay.
This sounds like something that could give us some real insight into, why a student might cheat.
Absolutely. And achievement goal theory is really interesting because it looks at the why behind a student's efforts to achieve something in their learning.
Okay.
And it focuses specifically on their goals related to their performance and their mastery of the material.
Got it.
And there's a key difference between what we call mastery goals and performance goals.
Okay.
So students with mastery goals, they're focused on actually learning and deeply understanding the subject matter.
Okay.
Their goal is to be competent in the skill or knowledge itself. On the other hand, you have students with performance goals.
Right.
And these students are more concerned with showing how good they are compared to others.
Okay, so it's more about proving themselves.
Exactly. It's about proving their ability and outperforming their peers.
Okay.
So one is really driven by that internal desire to learn, and the other is driven by this external need to kind of prove themselves.
Yeah.
So it's a subtle but important difference.
Right. And so how do these different goals then relate to academic dishonesty?
Right. So within these broader categories, researchers have actually identified 4 more specific types of goals.
Okay.
So first we have mastery approach,
Okay.
where students are really trying to increase their own understanding and master the material.
Right.
Then there's mastery avoidance,
Okay.
where students are more focused on avoiding failing to understand the material
Okay. Interesting.
or performing worse than they have in the past.
Okay.
And then on the performance side, we have performance approach goals, where students are aiming to outperform their classmates.
Right.
And then performance avoidance goals,
Okay.
where the main concern is to avoid performing worse than others.
Okay, so it's you're focused on either improving or not getting worse.
Exactly. And it can be about your own learning or how you compare to others.
Yeah, okay, so 4 kind of different.
4 different facets of achievement goals.
Yeah, okay, so now according to this meta-analysis, how do these different types of goals then relate to academic dishonesty?
Right. So what they found was really interesting. There's a clear negative link between academic dishonesty and a student's individual mastery approach goals.
Okay.
And they found a correlation of negative 0.17.
Okay, so what does that mean for the average listener?
So essentially what that means is that a student with strong mastery approach goals, someone who's really invested in learning the material for its own sake, driven by a desire to understand and to improve,
Right.
the idea of cheating would go against their primary goal,
Right.
which is to actually learn and gain knowledge and competence.
Yeah.
So it's almost counterintuitive for them to take a shortcut that completely bypasses the learning process.
Right.
Think about it. If you're really driven to understand something deeply, the idea of faking your way through it just feels wrong.
Yeah, it defeats the purpose.
It defeats the purpose, completely undermines what you're trying to achieve in the first place.
Yeah, so that internal drive to learn is actually a protection against cheating.
Yeah, it's a surprisingly strong shield against dishonesty.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So what about on the other side of the coin, what kind of achievement goals are actually linked to more dishonesty?
Right. So the meta-analysis found a positive link between academic dishonesty and what's called extrinsic goal orientation.
Okay.
And here the correlation was 0.31.
Okay. And remind us what extrinsic goal orientation is.
Right. So extrinsic goal orientation is a specific kind of performance goal.
Okay.
Where the main focus is on getting high grades and external rewards,
Okay.
like praise from teachers or scholarships.
Right. So it's not just about being better than your peers. It's about these external markers of success.
Right. And so when students are primarily driven by these external markers of success, academic dishonesty might seem like a more tempting way to achieve those grades and accolades.
Right. It's
even if it means
the ends justify the means type of thing.
Exactly. The ends justify the means, and the focus shifts from understanding to just getting the A.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
By any means necessary.
Yeah. So what about the learning environment itself? Does the way a classroom is structured influence this?
Yeah, absolutely. They also looked at classroom goal structures, which are essentially the messages that students pick up about what the teacher and the school value in their learning.
Okay.
So you have a mastery goal structure.
Okay.
Where teachers really emphasize understanding the material and learning for its own sake.
Right.
And then you have a performance goal structure, where the environment tends to emphasize competition between students and grades above all else.
Right.
And the meta-analysis found a negative association between academic dishonesty and a classroom mastery goal structure,
Okay.
with a correlation of negative 0.21.
So that means that in a mastery goal structure classroom, there's less academic dishonesty. Yeah.
Exactly. So when the learning environment prioritizes understanding and growth, students are less likely to engage in dishonest behaviors.
It's like if the whole culture of the classroom is about, you know,
It reinforces that the learning process itself is important.
yeah,
Yeah.
not about,
Which in turn reduces the temptation to cut corners.
yeah, not just about who gets the best grade, but who,
Exactly.
understands it the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to another really important concept here. The difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation and this idea of a motivation.
Sure.
These are terms that we hear quite a bit, but let's just break them down in the context of academic honesty.
Absolutely. So drawing from self-determination theory, which is a really well-established theory in psychology, and it looks at what fuels our actions.
Okay.
And we can define intrinsic motivation as that internal drive to do something because it's inherently enjoyable or interesting to you.
Okay.
So you're doing it for the pure satisfaction of learning or engaging in the activity itself.
All right.
Extrinsic motivation, on the other hand, is when your behavior is driven by external rewards like grades, money praise, or avoiding punishment.
Okay.
And then amotivation is essentially a complete lack of motivation.
Right.
No perceived reason to engage in the activity, whether internal or external.
So it's like one is fueled by the love of the game,
Yes,
the other by the desire for the trophy,
exactly.
and the third is like not even wanting to show up to practice.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah. Okay, so how do these then connect to academic dishonesty?
So the meta-analysis revealed some really interesting connections here.
Okay.
They found a negative association between intrinsic motivation and value and academic dishonesty with a correlation of negative 0.17.
Okay.
So students who genuinely enjoy learning and see value in the process are less likely to cheat.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Conversely, they found a positive link between a motivation and academic dishonesty with a correlation of 0.23.
Okay.
So as students feel completely unmotivated and don't see any point in the work, they might be more inclined to take dishonest shortcuts just to get it over with.
Right. If you don't care about the outcome, then why would you care about,
Exactly.
care?
The means don't matter as much.
Yeah.
If you're not invested in the outcome.
Okay, so what about extrinsic motivation then? Like, it seems like that could potentially push someone towards dishonesty if they're so focused on the reward, like getting a good grade.
Right. And this is where it gets really interesting and a little bit surprising.
Okay.
The meta-analysis actually found a non-significant relationship between general extrinsic motivation and academic dishonesty.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just 0.05 correlation.
So that means that, like,
It was not a strong predictor.
just having, like, external motivators isn't necessarily a predictor of dishonesty.
Right, and this might seem a bit unexpected, especially given our earlier discussion about how a specific focus on grades, which is a type of extrinsic goal orientation, was linked to dishonesty.
Right.
So it seems like the relationship between external rewards and cheating is more complex than just a simple positive link.
Okay.
And the researchers point out that individual studies have shown mixed results for extrinsic motivation.
Right.
And it could be that different types of extrinsic goals play different roles.
Right.
Like maybe short-term versus long-term goals.
Okay, so maybe it's not just about whether there's an external motivator,
It's more nuanced than that.
but what that motivator is and how the student perceives it.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's shift gears a little bit now and talk about self-efficacy. How does a student's belief in their own ability, academic abilities, relate to whether they might cheat or not?
Right. So self-efficacy, put simply, is your level of confidence in your ability to successfully complete a specific task
Okay.
or achieve a goal.
Yeah.
That, I believe I can do this feeling.
Or yeah.
And the meta-analysis found a negative association between self-efficacy and academic dishonesty,
Okay.
correlation of negative 0.16.
And so that suggests that if you have a higher self-efficacy, you're less likely to cheat.
Students who are more confident in their academic abilities are less likely to resort to cheating.
Which makes sense.
Makes sense, right? If you believe you could do well on your own,
Why risk it?
why take the risk of being dishonest and facing potential consequences?
Yeah. And it's also probably like if you feel capable of understanding the material and doing well,
Right.
you don't feel as much pressure to need to cheat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That confidence acts as a buffer against feeling like they need to cheat.
Yeah.
Their belief in their own competence reduces the need to engage in dishonest behaviors.
Okay. The study also touches on expectancy value theory.
Hmm.
Can you explain what that is and how it relates to academic dishonesty?
Sure. So expectancy value theory basically proposes that our motivation to engage in a task is driven by two main things:
Okay.
our expectation of succeeding at the task
Okay.
and the value that we place on it.
Okay.
And the meta-analysis specifically looked at one aspect of value called utility value,
Mm-hmm.
which is our perception of how useful a task is or the knowledge gained from it
Okay.
will be for our future goals, whether that's career, further education, other aspirations.
Right.
And they found a negative association here as well with a correlation of negative 0.15. So if a student sees the value in what they're learning for their future, they are less likely to engage in academic dishonesty.
Right. It's like if you understand why you need to know this,
Exactly.
you're more invested in actually learning it.
It's about relevance.
Yeah.
If you can see how this is going to help me in the future,
Right.
then you're more likely to want to learn it authentically rather than just trying to get a good grade.
Yeah. So it's not just about the grade, it's about the actual knowledge and skills.
Exactly. The perceived relevance and future benefits of the material increase the motivation to learn it honestly.
Yeah. Okay. Another interesting concept that this research mentions is locus of control.
Okay.
How does that factor into, this whole picture of academic honesty?
So locus of control is all about where you believe the power lies in your life when it comes to your successes and failures.
Okay.
So do you believe that your outcomes are a result of your own efforts and abilities?
Okay.
That's an internal locus of control. Or do you tend to think that external forces beyond your control, like luck or other people's actions, are more responsible?
Right.
And that's an external locus of control.
Okay.
And the meta-analysis found a negative association between having an internal locus of control and academic dishonesty,
Okay.
correlation of negative 0.13.
And so what does that mean?
So students who believe they are in control of their academic outcomes through their own hard work and skills
Mhm.
are less likely to cheat.
So if you believe that your hard work is going to pay off, you're going to work hard honestly.
Yeah, they see that direct link between their effort and their success.
Right.
So dishonest behavior becomes less appealing and even contradictory to their belief system.
Right. Okay. Now, the meta-analysis didn't just look at these general connections.
Right.
And they also explored whether other factors might influence these relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing they looked at was age or education level.
Yes.
What did they find there?
So this is where it gets really interesting in terms of, how these motivations might play out at different stages of a student's education.
Okay.
So they did find a significant moderating effect of education level on the relationship between intrinsic motivation and value and academic dishonesty.
Okay. And what does that mean, a moderating effect?
So what this means is that the negative correlation between being intrinsically motivated and engaging in dishonest behavior
Okay.
was actually stronger in post-secondary students,
Okay.
so college and university students.
Okay. Compared to K through 12.
Exactly.
Okay. So older students.
So it seems like that link is stronger as students progress in their education.
Yeah. And why might that be?
Well, there are a few potential explanations for this difference.
Okay.
As students move into higher education, they typically have much more autonomy over their learning.
Right. They're choosing their own classes.
They're choosing their courses. They have a better understanding of their own interests and future goals.
Right.
So this increased sense of ownership over their education
Mm-hmm.
could strengthen that link between their internal drive to learn and their commitment to academic integrity.
Right.
Additionally, by the time they reach college, they've had more experience with both the rewards of genuine learning and the potential consequences of cheating.
Right.
So maybe those who are intrinsically motivated have developed a stronger internal ethical compass regarding academic honesty over time.
Right. So it's like as you mature, your desire to learn honestly
becomes a stronger predictor of your actual honesty.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so bringing all this together, what would you say are some of the most important takeaways from this, deep dive into the motivations behind academic dishonesty?
So the meta-analysis really underscores the critical role of a student's internal drive and their belief in their own capabilities.
Okay.
We see consistent negative associations between academic dishonesty and things like having mastery approach goals that focus on learning and understanding,
Mm-hmm.
as well as intrinsic motivation, self-efficacy,
Right.
which is that belief in your ability to succeed. Utility value, seeing the value in what you're learning and having an internal locus of control,
Right.
that sense that you're in charge of your own outcomes.
Okay.
On the other hand, a strong focus on just getting those external rewards like grades
Right.
and a general lack of motivation seem to increase the likelihood of dishonest behavior.
Yeah.
And importantly, the environment in which learning takes place really matters.
Right.
Classrooms that prioritize understanding and growth seem to foster more academic integrity.
And so what are like the practical implications of these findings for, educators, for institutions, even for students themselves?
Well, it really suggests that we should be actively working to cultivate intrinsic motivation in students,
Okay.
help them understand and appreciate the value of what they're learning,
Mm-hmm.
and creating classroom environments that emphasize effort, growth, and mastery rather than solely focusing on grades and competition.
Yeah.
Seems to be key.
Okay.
And building students' self-efficacy by providing appropriate challenges and the support to meet them is crucial.
Mm.
The more confident students feel in their abilities,
Right.
the less likely they are to feel the need to cheat.
So it's almost like a fundamental shift in like the way that we view,
It's a shift in focus
education.
from achieving an outcome to valuing the process of learning,
Yeah.
from external validation to fostering internal growth and belief in oneself.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. So this has been incredibly insightful as we kind of wrap things up. Is there anything that really stood out to you from this research?
For me, the thing that was most surprising was the nuanced relationship with extrinsic motivation.
Okay.
While a strong focus on grades and rewards is linked to dishonesty,
All right.
general extrinsic motivation didn't show a strong connection.
Okay.
So it really highlights how complex human motivation is
Right.
and how we need to look beyond simple categories to understand what truly drives behavior.
Yeah.
And that stronger link between intrinsic motivation and honesty in older students is also really compelling.
Right.
It suggests that there's a developmental aspect to academic integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. It
Right.
really makes you think, like, what are the things that we can do within, educational settings
Right.
to foster this intrinsic drive as students go through their, academic careers?
It's a great question, and it's something for all of us to think about.
Yeah, whether you're a student and educator or just someone who's interested in, human behavior.
Absolutely.
So,
This deep dive has really just scratched the surface
right.
of this complex issue.
Yeah,
And there's so much detail in the original research
Mhm.
for anyone who wants to learn more.
right.
But hopefully it's giving you, the listener, a more informed perspective
Yeah,
on the reasons behind academic dishonesty
yeah.
and this powerful role that motivation plays.
This has been a really fascinating discussion.
It has.
Thanks for joining me.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone.